Warning, this video has Jujutsu manga spoilers, so click off now if you're not caught up with the manga.
I've seen a lot of people complain about this latest Jujutsu Kaisen chapter, mostly because of the way Sukuna's death was handled. And why? I mean, bro, what'd you expect Sukuna as a villain? I don't know why you expected him to have some sort of grand death and ride off into the sunset. He's literally a villain, bro. I mean, just look at some of the most vile and evil people in history. Hitler hid in a bunker and committed suicide. Saddam Hussein was hung in the middle of the streets for millions of people to see. And yeah, that's literally the point. Villains are not supposed to have some sort of grand exit that immortalizes them, especially after being responsible for the deaths of so many people. And Sukuna is no different. He's a villain, and let's emphasize this again. He's a villain. Villains always go out sad and disgraceful. If anything, it would be so bizarre and odd if Sukuna had a grand death. So yeah, let's talk about why Sukuna having a disgraceful death is really not a big deal. You know what? Let me even stave off from real life villains and talk about villains in anime. Just cause y'all be like, why am I talking about real life villains? Like, we're talking about animes. So I'm just focused on anime villains. Don't worry, I got y'all. So focusing on anime villains is always kind of like a cruel twist of fate when these villains always end up being done out in a manner that is completely opposite from the way they've been portrayed. When Light Yagami died, it was marked by desperation and delusion, which was so ironic for someone that had absolute power and believed he was a god. He went out in not only a lonely way, but in a pathetic and pitiful manner. Frieza too, for someone that had all the power in the world and all the influence in the world, his death was also marked by desperation that left him in a pitiful state. Frieza and Light ended up begging and being so pitiful at death's door, which was such a stark contrast from the way they've been portrayed in their respective shows. I mean, you'd never see Frieza beg or Light beg, and yeah, when they were about to die, everything switched and these guys were shown in the most disgraceful way possible. And let's even switch aside from those characters. Let's look at other characters like Madara and Kira. The irony is that for these two characters that were so conniving and calculating, they ended up dying in the most abrupt and inglorious way possible. Like, it was like an accident that like maybe somebody slipped and fell and just died. Like, they ended up dying like that, which was so ironic because these guys are so calculating. They plan everything 10 steps ahead, and the way they died, they came out of nowhere. And that's what I mean, that when anime characters typically die, it's always so left field and you're so shocked that whoa, they died in a way that like has been completely opposite from the way they've been portrayed. And if I'm being real, they honestly deserve it. These characters cause so much death and destruction, so for them to be what they've always portrayed not to be in their final moments is something they absolutely deserve. These guys are not supposed to have a grand death that further glorifies everything they did while they were alive. Like, you want them to get extra cool points when they were dying? The fuck? No, it's not about that. Villains go out sad. I don't know where this recent trend of anime and manga fans wanting villains to have the same treatment as heroes and have such a grand death. Like, where did that come from? That's just bad writing. Like, you don't reward somebody for all the evil deed and actions they've done when they die. Like, you're not gonna like make it very grand. Like, that's just bad writing. And it's not just even bad writing, like, the real world doesn't work like that. I beg you, please research, look into some of like the most evil people in the world. A lot of them went out sad and alone. Like, they went out in the most unclimatic way possible. And that's just how stuff really works. Villains don't have things that redeem them at the end. And the main reason is because these guys usually hold firm to their ideals and beliefs, which inevitably ends up leading to them dying in the end. And that actually leads into my next point. With so many people asking for a Heian era flashback, and I ask again, why? Like, why do you want a flashback? Bro, I don't want or need a Heian era flashback that shows me that, oh, Sukuna was bullied as a kid, or he was an outcast, or he had a tough upbringing. No, I don't need any of that. Like, keep that shit away. Please, if it's gonna be in that realm, keep it. I don't need it. Villains do not need to be redeemable. Like, what are we doing? These guys just killed so many people right in front of you, and you're looking for something for them to be redeemable? No. Like, no, bro. Like, why are y'all always so desperate to find something redeemable or sympathetic or something to make you relate to a villain? Like, what is wrong with y'all? They are villains in the first place. You're not supposed to find something in them. No, like, you're supposed to hate these guys in the first place. Again, I cannot stress this enough. These people have caused so much death and destruction. They don't need to or deserve to be humanized. Like, why do you want to feel so bad for someone that caused so much death and destruction? And if he did get his way, he'd continue with that. They're villains, and if a villain is gonna have a flashback, it should be for one reason only: further explain the ideology and provide more context to it if we didn't get enough of that in the main storyline. And I'm gonna give you an example. A great example of this is with Doflamingo. We kind of understood his ideology, but his flashback helped to provide more context to it and help us as readers better understand his ideology. Doflamingo's flashback did not do anything to make him seem redeemable or even sympathetic. If anything, he even doubled down with how evil he is, and you should not try and find this guy sympathetic or redeemable. He's an evil scumbag. That's what the flashback did. And that's why I said I don't believe we need a Hien era flashback. Because A, we don't really need more context to Sukuna's ideology. I actually believe Gege did a very great job explaining and showing us Sukuna's ideology in the main storyline of the series. There are multiple instances where Gege shows and not tells us what Sukuna's ideology is. And that's honestly the best way of storytelling. You show your audience, you don't just outright tell it. I actually have a video where I go deeper into explaining what Sukuna's ideology is, so yeah, you can check it out right here. But basically, to explain the point of that video, Sukuna does not want or need you to understand him. At every instance in the story, he's maintained that he's a force of nature and he does whatever he desires. Everything is below him and he bends not only others, but even the whole world to his will. I maintain that this is not really the most complex ideology for a villain, and because it's not so complex, that's why I feel Gege already did such a great job of explaining everything we have to see of this ideology in the main storyline of the show. There really is no need for any further elaboration of this ideology in a flashback when it's already been really fleshed out in the main storyline of the show. Sukuna is not Gojo. He doesn't need a huge deep dive for us to help understand him. He is who he is, and you just have to accept it that way. That's how he's always been portrayed in the story, so why would you want to change it when he dies? So yeah, we don't need a here and now flashback. It serves no purpose to the story. Actually, I might even ask you, why do you want a here and now flashback? Like, what purpose does it serve for you? Please comment down below, because maybe I'm just missing everything and you understand the story way better than me. So comment down below why you wanted a here and now flashback. With the way Gege actively glazed Sukuna so much, I was actually very worried and very scared that Gege would try to make Sukuna redeemable and make the audience sympathetic to him when he died. But thank God, he was able to get that Hienera meat out of his mouth and come to his senses. Pause. Bruh, Gege has been 2 out of 2 so far in this last 5 chapters. I know a lot of y'all aren't really happy with that Nobara thing, but that happens all the time in anime. Like, people always come back. So why are you gonna be mad when it happens in JJK, when it happens all the time in other shows? Like, I could mention other shows where that same exact trope comes out. But yeah, Gege, you've actually been doing a pretty good job this last couple of chapters. W-mans, like W-mans for real. Moving on, these niggas are villains. They don't deserve any sort of closure. Like, why do you want closure for people that have done horrible things when they're defeated? Especially someone like Sukuna. Like, why do y'all... This guy is a horrible, evil person. Even in his dying moment, Sukuna denounced Yuji and chose death instead. Like, what do you want? For him to acknowledge his whole life and be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I actually made a mistake. Like, huh? That'll just ruin everything. No, like, we gotta actually let villains be villains. And you know how I know that Sukuna's death was actually handled well? Because when this guy died, my initial thoughts was like, wow, like, finally, like, he's actually dead. And sure, I'm not the biggest Sukuna fan, I do have an agenda, but this wasn't from a place of agenda. It was a place from like, wow, this Sukuna guy was torturing the niggas, he was killing everybody, he was damn near destroying everything. So for him to actually go out, it's like, I'm relieved, like, damn, good riddance, he's actually gone. Like, yeah, like finally. And I feel that's how a lot of people felt when a lot of other evil people in real life died. Like, I don't think people are like, oh, you know what? Damn, like Hitler needs more closure, like when he died. Like, huh? No, like people are happy. They were like, damn, this nigga's dead. Like, yeah. Like, they don't deserve closure, bro. They're villains. And that's the point I've been trying to make. And if Sukuna is your favorite character in the show and you just wanted him to have a grander death, bro, be for real. He's a villain. Like, you gotta be realistic. When you think of characters that went out that way, people like Whitebeard, Oki from Kingdom, Netero, Jiraiya, all of this type of deaths is always some sort of sacrifice that goes on to have a lasting impact on characters in the show. It also helps the story progress and provides significant emotional impact for us readers. Sukuna doesn't fall into the category of characters like this, so why would he have a death like that? He doesn't even fall into the category of characters like Meruem or Ashalad, characters who had the redemption arc, which eventually allowed them to have a sort of grand and honorable death. And the reason why it works for those characters is because it was being built up as the story progressed. You don't want to force that and rush that right at the end of the story when there's been no sort of development for that. Sukuna having a death like that would just feel misplaced and out of touch. Which characters would you be trying to impact? Who's he sacrificing for? What emotional weight are we readers supposed to feel for him when he's killed half of the main cast? Like, these are questions you actually have to ask yourself. All of those deaths I previously mentioned had context to them. They weren't just cool for the sake of being cool. If anything, it was the context of these deaths that elevated them and even made them as grand as they were. There's just no narrative context for Sukuna to have a death like this. It would just be strictly to make him look cool. And that'll just end up having a negative effect on his character instead. So we gotta be realistic, guys. Personally, I'm very pleased with the way Gege handled Sukuna from his very first introduction all the way to this last chapter. More than anything, I'm even convinced he's one of the best villains Shonen has to offer. He truly is a villain's villain that deviates from typical cliche writing tropes that try to make villains redeemable or sympathetic. Like, no, I don't need that. We don't want that. Let a villain be a villain. No, like, I'm evil, bro. I don't have any distinguishable traits that should make you resonate with me. I am a villain. And this is exactly what made Sukuna such a challenge not only to Yuji but the entire cast of Jujutsu Kaisen. His presence not only evoked fear but commanded the utmost respect. Bro had that aura, if I had to put it in short terms. Not to even mention other great things like his unpredictability, his intelligence, and how he always drives the stake of the plot forward. Honestly, I'm gonna stop now because it just seems like I'm glazing, bro. But yeah, he's a great villain. A lot of other mangakas be trying to find ways to redeem a villain and they don't really set it up well, so it just ends up diminishing the villain. Bro, don't lose the plot. Stick to it. These guys are villains. They are defined by three things: their ideology, their actions, and their impact. Gege stuck to that and was able to land everything. And that's why Sukuna is a great villain.